Hey everybody, happy 2020. It's been a while since I did my last video. I've just been busy traveling around, family, some downtime. So I'm back now. Well, I've been back for a little while, but I've been sort of thinking about what I'd like to do the next video on. So I've come up with something that I think is a good way to start the new year. So I've titled my video sort of the myth of happiness and how intelligence isn't really the ultimate virtue to have. And I say that because, well, partly because of the time of year. So everybody knows of the phenomenon that at the, January is the most depressed time of the year. It's when a lot of suicides happen, sort of right around this time, end of January. And, there's many reasons for it. Probably one of the reasons is they're alone and they're sad and have a lot of despair in their lives. Another reason is probably all the debt that they've accumulated buying presents, which really, that's a whole other topic in and of itself, but you get the point. So there's a lot of reasons why it's cold, it's dark, it's gloomy. But I think that there's another reason why people in general are unhappy. You may have heard of the statistic that women, for example, have been getting progressively less happy every decade. So they'll poll women. So since that sounded dirty, poll women. They'll take a survey of women over the last several decades. Actually, it's on my Twitter if you want to look at that study. I just haven't pulled it up because it's not really exactly what I'm talking about, but it's just an example. They, every decade since their quote unquote liberation, they have been, unhappy. And why are they unhappy? It's because they've been given things that they were told that they need and came to find out that they don't really need lots of sex with lots of strangers and working jobs that their husbands used to work. They don't even have husbands anymore. They've got cats and dogs. They're dog moms, which is so freaking sad. Men actually are all right. They're not necessarily getting more sad or depressed. They are a little bit, but just not as the nosedive at that rate that women are. Another thing is, well, in general, people are being sold a lie. And that's really the focus of my video right now. We're being sold a lie that you need XYZ to be even remotely on the spectrum of happiness. Have you made it in life? If you don't have these things, probably not by current standards. And I would like to argue that those standards, the material standards for one, is a huge problem. But setting that aside, I want to talk a little bit about the emotional standards and how we even came up with this scale of positive, neutral, negative. What qualifies as a happy experience and nice positive events in your life? Well, I would argue that those things are created and they're not necessarily natural to the way that we appraise situations and ourselves. I'm not sure why my pictures are not working. I do apologize. What's going on here? That's not helpful either. Why are you not working? Okay, anyway. I guess I'll just talk then. Okay. So why is it that we interpret that all things which are necessary in life, why do we call that neutral? Well, because they're technically speaking, that should be seen as a good thing, right? If you just take a physical example, so something in nature, which we call homeostasis, right? The balance in nature between all organisms and everything in life, that's seen as neutral. I don't know, isn't that really a good thing? Isn't it good that things are not falling apart? Like, why do we appraise that as not significant? Take, for example, your body. The human body is actually a finely tuned machine, just like everything else in the world is. But the body specifically, for example, if your blood pH is off by a little bit, and it's actually a very, very narrow margin, what it needs to, for you to not die. If that is off by just a little bit, you're dead. Same with people who have so much diabetes nowadays, right? Your blood sugar. If that's off, your body's going into self-defense or death mode, right? Why are we saying that the fact that we're alive is just meh, it's normal, it's neutral, it's not a big deal? No, that's great. Why are we not happy about that? Why does that not make you happy, right? Because we have misinterpreted what happiness actually is. So, what about, for example, just anything else that is vital to us? Why do we never see that as a good thing? So, it seems that we have to always put a spin. We never put that positive spin on things because we just take them for granted as if that it's necessary. Of course you need to eat. Of course you need to be clothed. Of course you need to have a house. Where is the benefit? Where is the extra coming from? That's what people are after to make themselves happy, quote unquote. And they're never actually satisfied or content or grateful or thankful for everything that they do have. So instead of seeing it as, you're almost seeing it as an equation, right? You're seeing it as an additive model where you need to add things, consume things, acquire things, keep adding to the model of you to gain happiness. But nobody seems to think a little bit about the fact that, or, go for the cost benefit method instead, or for the absence of negative things in your life. That's not seen so much as a good thing, right? So you're not suffering so much. You're not dying like other people. You're not starving like other people, many other people. You're not in a war-torn country. Though we might argue that, yes, we are at war in one way or another. You're not physically being bombed right now, like people in Yemen, like people in Palestine. You're not physically being oppressed to the extent that you could be, let's say, right? Why is no one actually really grateful for that? Why does that not make you happy, right? For example, my background is in psychology, and we have this sort of, there's a concept or a theory, and it's called counterfactual thinking. It's counter to the fact, right? So you can either go in a positive direction or negative direction with counterfactual thinking. You can say, wow, I just got into a car accident, but I didn't die. I might have lost a leg, but I could have lost both legs, or I could have died. And so that's the positive way. You can always say, well, it could have been worse. But there are other people, it's the glass half full, half empty people, right? They always say it could have been better. Well, why did I even have to get into a car accident? Oh my God, life's so unfair. So they always think, well, everything could be better. Well, yeah, in an ideal world, everything could be better. That would be great, wouldn't it? But you don't live in that ideal world. And even in your virtual world, you're still limited, right? So everyone is always almost like a drug, chasing and chasing and chasing after these quote unquote good things, great things, extraordinary things that actually tend to be very rare. Like, not everyone is going to become a millionaire. Not everyone is going to find the love of their life. They might find someone that they love and can grow old with and whatever. But, and to me, that's like, what better joy is that? You're not going to find Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. But why are you not grateful for someone who has chosen to love and accept you and cherish you and be with you and be faithful to you and work hard for you and all the rest of this, of support you? Apparently that's not good enough, right? It's like that expression, greatness is the enemy of the good. You know, we always say to pursue the good and to follow what is good, right, and proper. And yet, somewhere in the back of our minds, there's this idealism that is holding us back because, well, it could always be better. No, it could be significantly worse. In fact, it's very unlikely that it's as good as it is for us now. So why, everyone else is struggling. If you actually look around the world, and that's a problem. I've had the benefit of traveling and seeing how other people live. And granted, I don't necessarily go to like third world places or whatever, but you see those people come to our countries and to live where we live, and you can talk to them and you can see, oh my goodness, like a family of 12 is living in a 1-bedroom apartment and they're happy. They're happy to have their family and to be alive and to be here and have this better opportunity. And yet we live in a mansion. Not that I live in a mansion, but like, some people live, look how the rich and famous live. And they're somehow not happy. They're always on drugs. They're always killing themselves or doing terrible things to other people. Why is that, right? It's that they're never content, satisfied, grateful, thankful for the things that they have. So, as I said, we're sort of like in this addicted state of chasing after idealistic, perfectionist things that are not really ever going to happen to us. The amount of people that play the lottery is just ridiculous because there can only be one winner. And why wouldn't you maybe better invest your time, effort, and money into something that will pay off? No one thinks that way because they want that greatness. So, as I said, the presence of happiness seems to be conditional on a certain event. If the stars don't align just right, you're not happy. I think that's ridiculous. What makes more sense, in my opinion, is the fact that you should take stock of all the things that you do have and not to compare yourself to other people and to other circumstances which don't apply to you, because we all have our unique circumstances. And this is why I mentioned briefly the media, but that we're fed these artificial and manufactured goals and the criterion and the standards we measure ourselves and our lives against. And you see it all the time. Social media is recent, but it's probably the worst culprit, purely because we're actively seeking out those reinforcers and those rewards that we get from other people in real time. Whereas like the media, like if you don't see certain movies or you don't watch the news or you don't have experience with those outlets, then you're not going to necessarily get the full messaging and programming. But we sort of create our own I don't want to say like gilded lilies, cages or whatever, gilded cages, yeah. But we do filter and curate our own social media, right? Because we pick who we're friends with, who we follow, the things on our feed, who we're interacting with, how we're interacting with them. And we just constantly make things worse for ourselves. You see someone, you got a nice present that you wanted, but you see someone got a better present that you would have also liked, but it's not always, in the budget or in your circumstances for you. You went on a nice trip which you enjoyed, and then you saw someone else went to an even better trip, which you might have liked as well. And it's no longer just watching a Hollywood movie where it's like this rom-com chick flick. Oh, he's just so perfect and he says all the right things, yeah, because it's scripted, and he just does all the right things, yeah, because it's scripted, and she just like does her like little leg pop when she kisses him, and life is perfect. I'm intentionally being mocking of this because for some reason, even back then, people forgot that's a movie. Like, that's not life. I mean, for example, I'm really lucky and I'm really grateful and thankful because my husband is absolutely wonderful. He's so romantic. He's so sweet. He's so caring. He's so kind. But at the end of the day, he's just like a human being. He's not like a created character who's like there for all my wishes and desires. He's not like your toy. He's not your servant. And same thing with, women's female spouses. Like, they're not porn stars. They're not actresses. Like, whatever you say, honey. Yes, absolutely. I live to please you. I mean, I'm sure there are women like that, but it's just, you can't expect things like that because those things are not real. And if they were, it's almost like, it's like you own the person. It's like your dog rather than your companion. And so it was odd enough that people actually wanted boyfriends and husbands and wives and girlfriends like in the movies, which already is fictitious. But then when you see social media, there's an element of reality to it, because yes, of course, there are fake accounts and bots, and yes, everything you could see is touched up and, to some extent made more perfect than it really is. But again, coming back to the point of the air of reality, yeah, those are actual people on those boats and on those fancy hotels and on that fancy beach, and they are, you don't know what they did to get there and who they're really with and whatever, but there are people living these quote unquote like luxury fancy lifestyles, and you think, well, it's clearly attainable. It's not just a movie, is it? It's like real life. People are doing these things, and you absolutely get sucked into that. And sometimes they're people you know, for example, you went to high school with this girl or guy and they were like losers, and now all of a sudden they're rich and traveling the world, and they got this cool spouse or whatever. That's actually far more dangerous, because you could rationalize and say, oh, it's just a movie. No. These are like real people that you know, or maybe not that you know, but they're like public figures. These people exist mostly. And so you really start going down this, like that Faustian deal where you're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I'll do anything for that. And then you don't realize the sacrifices it takes to achieve that fictitious goal. It's like Owen said this in one of his streams, and I think it was brilliant. He said, like, the devil's favorite word is more, and that's 100% our problem. That's why we're so unhappy. It's always more. So it's not enough that you have everything that one could possibly need, right? It's like, who was it? Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. And people ignore that. They totally neglect that your fundamental needs are what are important. Whereas some people are quite happy to live in a dump, be hungry, but have like the latest trendy clothes and phones. That makes no sense. And that's why they're never happy, because the priorities are all flipped on their head. So they're chasing after the wrong thing. So it's sad to see, and it's a problem that people could easily avoid, but they're not avoiding it because everything is reinforcing those bad values. So like, for example, I'll give you two examples. I'll give you a biblical example, and then I'll give you a scientific example. Very often in the Bible, we are told, and I would even say commanded, to be grateful for things. It will always sometimes end certain passages. And remember to do all things in gladness with thanksgiving, and supplication, and saying thank you and be grateful, and, always appreciate and have that connection with everything, with God, with your family, with your surroundings, and to just constantly be, it literally says this. I go, oh, is that why we have Thanksgiving? I'm so dumb. It's like, always do things in gladness. Don't do things as if they're a chore. Do them with gladness. Yes, I'd be happy to help you. I'd be happy to do that. It's not work. It's maintaining my home, my property, my garden, my life, my family. It's not like, oh, you think kids are great? Wait till you have kids. It's a lot of work. No, do it with gladness. They're your flesh and blood, Oh, it must be nice to have a big garden. Yeah, well, you could have it too if you weren't such a whiner, right? Everything doesn't have to be a chore. Do things with gladness, with thanksgiving, with gratitude, that you even have the ability. Some people are disabled, and they can't do the things that they wish that they could toil in the fields because they so much long for growing flowers or food. But you can do it, and you're not doing it because you're whinging. So that's one thing. We're told not to be whiners and complainers. That's one thing. Okay, let's go to the scientific thing. I'm personally really interested in food and health, and, like the mixture of old healing traditions plus modern medicine, like seeing how that all works, like a kind of a holistic lifestyle, right? And so I was watching one of these videos, and this lady was saying that they have done studies, and they found that you will have like more optimal health and better absorb your food and the nutrients in the food, and you'll have more stable hormones and more stable sort of like synaptic activity, your neurotransmitters will be better in better alignment and things, and just overall you will have better digestion, better health, everything, if you just calm down before the meal and say grace. They found people who say grace before meals have better health and better like food intake and things than people who don't, who just wolf it down without thinking about it. In that moment, like they try to scientifically explain, oh, it's because you're in a calmer state, your hormones, everything's like mellowed out. And okay, well, isn't that basically describing the state of like contentment and joy and satisfaction, or happiness? You could call it that. They're trying to kind of make it seem more secular and non-religious, but they specifically were talking about giving, saying grace, right? So there's a reason why people do it, right? There's a reason why religious people are significantly happier than non-religious people. And it's because that it's part of their worldview to be thankful. Even when, like, again, I'll give another biblical example. Jesus says all the time, you will suffer in my name's sake. You will experience tribulation. You might be poor, but thou art rich in spirit. And with me, you might live badly or die in this life, but you will live forever in the next life. Again, we're told to deal with suffering already because it's a part of life. It's a long way from Eden, okay? We've been long gone from that. There is no live forever in a perfect world. It's over. So accept that things are not good. But then exactly, if you make the neutral, your baseline as the fact that things are not good, then everything that happens to you that isn't bad, by definition, should be good. And yet we're not happy with that because we're told that good, we've moved the needle over from everything that's good is now considered neutral. It's been given a value of what's neutral? 0, nothing, not important. And so instead, what's happened is we're chasing after things that are likely not going to happen to you. Like I said, you're not going to become the next it person. You're not going to be as rich as you might like to be. But again, there are studies that have confirmed this over and over again. Beyond a certain income, and I think it's actually not very high, depending if it's like just a spouse, two people, 50,000 is enough. If it's a family of 2 kids and a mom and dad, 75,000 is enough. As long as you can pay all your bills, maybe have 1 or 2 holidays a year, and just in general be comfortable. You don't need to actually make $500,000 or any of that. It's more stress, it's more time away, and it actually doesn't make you happier. So there's that as well to think about. So in general, there's nothing preventing us from being happy than ourselves. And I think I should caveat this before people freak out. Well, you don't know what it's like. I'm severely depressed. I'm clinically depressed. And I have so much problems in my life, and I hate myself and I hate this world. And I totally get that. But again, something that therapists will recommend is try to change your thinking, and you might find it will have a knock-on effect of changing your physiological reactions to things, your emotional reactions to things. It's like the ABC in psychology: affect, which is your emotion; behavior, obviously; and cognition, which is your thinking. So those 3 things, if you can get the ABCs down, things hopefully should follow and continue on in a better way for you. But it's oftentimes, actually, I think Freud said this. He said, mental illness is something we talked ourselves into, and it's something that we can only talk ourselves back out of. It's self-induced, and oftentimes it's the only way is to you yourself to pull yourself back out of it. Okay, there are going to be traumatic events, stressful events, but it's how you deal with them. No one can make you feel anything. You make yourself feel anything. So you think you don't have control, but you do. The only thing you have control over actually is yourself. And that's the one thing we sort of like masochistically surrender ourselves to. Whatever will be, will be. See, again, back to the media, all these stupid songs and cliches and all this. Some of them are true, some of them are not. But like, we just we, we just take our cues from all the wrong places and ignore people who are trying to tell you for your own good, because people do tend to care about each other and want the best. So we're ignoring those people. Oh, must be nice. For other people who are like, well, look at me, I live a perfectly manufactured life that you only see snippets of and don't know any of the struggles that I actually live. Sometimes my husband and I like to watch this show Botched, just a bit of mind-numbing entertainment. And these people, it's like, oh, I've had 8 nose jobs and I have 1,000 cc's in my tits and they're taking over my whole body, but I just don't think that they're big enough. Actually, we were coming back from holiday and we were at the airport and there was a lady we both sort of stared and like chuckled and freaked out a little bit. Her tits were like, she was tiny and her tits were like 2 basketballs, like bigger than basketballs, attached. And I just thought, oh my God, like, how do you live? It wasn't even attractive at that point. It's not even like a nice rack. You're just like, ew. In any case, so you just sort of, you have to just take stock of what you have and be grateful and appreciate the things that you do have. I think this is something that they say in AA. It's like, what is it like? Lord, give me the strength to change the things that I can, accept the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference, or something like that. Great, do that. You work on what you can, accept what you can't, and just get on with it. I know that sounds so like, I don't want to say mean, and I don't want to say obvious, and I don't want to say that it's easy either. It's just, it is what it is. And it's not going to help you wallowing in your own misery. It's only going to eat you up more, and you're really only just proving the point more. So I really do have compassion for people who are struggling. I do want the best for you, but I do think that the solution is in your own hands. And that should be empowering. That should really give you a lot of strength and courage to take on those challenges in your life and to try to overcome them. I really do. I believe in you. You're better than this. Put that on repeat. I believe in you and you're better than this. You are happy. You just won't allow yourself to acknowledge it. Okay. That's what I had to say about the happiness topic. Then now let me move on quickly to the intelligence topic. Now, there's a lot to say about it per se, but I'm only just going to synthesize it into a few quick points. I think that it is incredibly destructive, demoralizing, and downright insulting to people to say that if you're not, quote unquote, smart, intelligent, that you're not quite good enough. You're not really so qualified for these jobs. And just in general, people are so stupid. Oh God, I can't believe I have to be around the normies. They're so dumb. Okay. If your standard for human value is how much that they can do the input-output thing, then you're actually comparing people to robots. People are not computers. There's a reason why AI is not able to mimic human behavior. It's because human behavior is very complicated, and we are emotional beings. We are creative beings. We are far more than, if you've heard of a Turing machine, the whole input-output thing. We are way more than that. And so to take people down to that level, it's not actually elevating people at all. It's degrading them. It's absolutely a demotion, not a promotion. It's not saying, there are actually very, very few truly intelligent people. Like, how many Teslas are there in the world? Very few. So don't aspire to be that guy. Again, just like don't aspire to win the lottery, don't aspire to be the 1% of geniuses in the world. It ain't going to happen. So just get it out of your head. Unless you truly are, then absolutely cultivate your gifts. Absolutely harness and sharpen your talents, and God bless you and good luck. I totally want that for you. But let's be honest, most people are not that. People tell me like, oh, you're so smart, you're so clever, wow, you're so insightful, you're so thoughtful. Yeah, thanks. But I'm actually like, I'm not a genius either. Like, I'm not that. There are many smarter people than me, and I'm actually quite happy to be around them, because you don't ever want to be the smartest guy in the room. It's lonely being that guy. Okay. And in general, it's always nice to learn from other people. But that's really neither here nor there. What I'm trying to say is that we have made a standard. For example, I'm going to just pick on the IQ test just for a minute, but I'll talk about other topics as well. The IQ test, though psychologists and psychiatrists and whatever, people who make the test, the researchers, they do have, by their own statistical standards, there is reliability and validity and predictability for your outcomes based on this test. But it requires people to have been trained and educated in such a way as to be able to be proficient in that test. So one of my professors, when I was studying, they put up this picture, which I'm trying to freaking show you, but I can't. I don't know why. It's really annoying. You can look it up yourself. It's basically, there's a bunch of animals and there's a tree and there's a person sat at a desk. And he's the guy who's evaluating you, and says, right, okay, this test has to be fair. And so everybody has to climb the tree. And it's an elephant who can't climb the tree. It's a bird who can't land on the tree. It's a monkey. And then there's a fish in a fishbowl. It's like, is the test actually really testing properly what it's, meant to test? Not really. Is it really fair to take someone who has never been brought up in that sort of Western education tradition and tell them, what do you know? Although pattern recognition is something probably all people have, it's like, what's the next sequence in these obscure shapes that you've never seen in your life before? How can you manipulate these numbers in obscure ways? It's like, what is your reading comprehension? What if that's not even your language? So these are things that actually IQ tests will try to work out and whatever, and they still stick to the fact that it's not biased, though it's pretty obvious to see how it is biased. And, people have said it's a bit racist, and I'm not sure that it's intentionally racist, but actually you can see there's been a lot of reports on, for example, schools where they notice that certain ethnic groups are obviously performing much worse on it, and it's not because they're dumb. I don't believe that, unless there's something fundamentally wrong with you on a physical level, I don't believe anybody's dumb per se. You just haven't learned something. You might be ignorant, as in not knowing something, but I don't think people are just inherently dumb. If all your life, for example, and all your ancestry have worked with their hands, which is a noble thing to do, everybody needs those type of skills. Society wouldn't be built without them. How do you expect them to all of a sudden become accountants or whatever, right? You can't. So it's just defending their own ego for the people who made it and people who keep using it as a valid testing measure, that they want to defend it. But I'll say this, there are other types of intelligence out there, and they have started doing this emotional intelligence, musical intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence, all these other things. Okay, great. People learn in different ways, visual, auditory, all the rest. Although you do require all of them. Some people are just better at one or the other. And so those things are all true, but you sort of just have to harness who you are and what you're good at, and not so much worry about, am I the next nerdy guy out there? No, that's okay. People are creative. People are not creative. So harness the skills that you have, and be proud of those things, and just know that it takes all sorts to make up the world, right? We're not all the same, and the fact that we're using one metric, a rather irrelevant metric, such as intelligence alone, and not anything else. Like, as I said, people who can't frickin' put up curtains because they just don't know how, or people who can't cook basic things because they don't understand the principles of it, or people who couldn't hunt to save their lives, literally, people who, have no creative ability, no organizational skills, no people skills, how to talk to other people. You could be do you notice that the scientists are like seen as like cold robots because they just see everything as like an object to be manipulated, and they don't realize the humanity in people? Same thing with like computer nerds or whatever. They just see things as like symbols or whatever. It's a stereotype, but it's not necessarily inaccurate, because it's complicated to be a human. And so don't let anyone put you down. In fact, I would consider it's, though I don't like the victim narrative of it, it is discriminatory. They'll say things like, oh, not to discriminate on your race and sex and orientation and gender. It's like, but you're discriminating against people based on this artificial thing called intelligence, and neglecting like all the life wisdom, which is different. Again, read Proverbs and you'll understand what wisdom is. There's a difference between knowing things and understanding the nature of reality, of people, of certain things themselves, certain processes, and yet not scoring highly on a test per se, right? So again, don't let anyone insult you in that way, because that is not the ultimate good. It's not the highest virtue or value that you possess. And as I said in my 5 minutes ago, you're better than that, and it doesn't really matter. So there are, for example, professors who can't even tidy up their own, offices, and yet they're geniuses. It's like, well, you don't know how to like pick up a broom or something, like, it seems so silly. And so it's really easy to look down on people. I hate when they'll say working class. What? No one else works, or only these people work? Like, why are you talking about them? Oh, the poor. Oh, they're just not very bright. They're a bit thick. It's like, but why? Why do you think that? Why do you praise them that way? Maybe they have other interests, and you're not actually evaluating those interests. All you care about is, reading, writing, maths, or whatever. Or, oh, do you know what enzyme does which? It's like, you do that. You're good at that. What did Adam Smith do? Specialization, right? You're good at that. Then you do that. I'll do what I'm good at, and together we'll make a productive society, a happy society where people can fulfill and find meaning in their life. And it has nothing to do with, looking down at people. It's actually quite predatory. It really does demoralize people and incentivize predatory behavior. You rank people at school, and all of a sudden you feel like you're some sort of halfwit because you're at the bottom of the rank, but actually you're an incredible artist and not a mathematician. You have a way with people, you make them feel at ease, and you make, no one cares about that, right? And then when you go to higher education, that's another, who's the most obedient person who can regurgitate information that may or may not actually be true, but is good at doing that, and then forgets it instantly and put new crap in their head and forgets that after. It's not the way people have lived before, and it's really not a good way to keep going. These are artificial hurdles that we have created that people have to jump over, when really they didn't need that barrier in their life, right? Sometimes it's hard enough already with the cards you're dealt, and then you're, I'm not trying to sound like some type of hippie or, make you feel good or whatever, but these are like things that people don't want to think about or address, but it's actually quite a valid criticism of how we're treating people. And then you wonder why there's these, deaths of despair or whatever, why people turn to drugs and why people feel isolated and alienated. And, everybody wants to pitch in, and you're not giving people that chance. And you also make them feel absolutely unnecessarily bad about themselves, just so that you can feel better, because you've actually got one muscle and it happens to be your brain, whereas you don't have anything else. And so you have to make those other people feel badly as if they're just some peasants toiling. It's like, no. If and when, for example, the grid goes down, you're not going to need any lawyers, you're not going to need any accountants, but you are going to need tradespeople, you are going to need agricultural people, you are going to need like people who can purify water. You're not going to need some guy pontificating about the syntax of 17th century German poetry. No one will need that. No one. So it's really funny. And always ask yourself, who is driving this narrative? What is the agenda behind it? Why is it that certain people are included and other people are excluded? And I'm not saying include everyone and everything all the time. Like, you need, as I said, specialization. You need certain people in certain jobs, and there's nothing wrong with making, in the first sense of the word, discriminatory choices, as in to choose between things. I don't mean in the other sense of discrimination where you're intentionally putting people down because of you not liking them or whatever other reason you have. So anyway, not to make this video too long, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, and I look forward to hearing any of your feedback and your comments and what you think about this as well. But I thought, just to get back into the swing of things and give some people something to think about and talk about in the new year, I'll be doing more videos to come, of course, but so this is just me getting back on the horse. So hope you enjoyed it. I do like to post interesting things on Twitter, so if you want to check my About page on my channel, you can see where my Twitter is and follow that link. That's that, and then otherwise I will see you all back here, so take care, and bye.